We begin in Lebanon, where hundreds of Africans are trapped in the country as cross-border exchanges between Hezbollah and Israeli forces intensify. Now, these pictures show the aftermath of an Israeli strike earlier today, which killed an official of the Palestinian political party, the Fatah movement. A senior member of the group said the attack hit the man's car on the outskirts of the port city of Sidon. Now, this incident marks the first such strike on a member of the Fatah movement, led by Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, since the start of the Gaza war. The shelling across the border began after the October 7th attack on Israel, with Hezbollah, a Lebanese political party and paramilitary group, which is designated a terrorist group by the U.S., saying it is supporting the Palestinian people. Though the fighting has so far been limited to southern Lebanon and northern Israel, there are concerns that the rest of Lebanon could get caught up as the conflict transforms into a wider regional clash. This is particularly concerning for the over 250,000 foreign domestic workers in Lebanon, a large number of whom are from Kenya and from Ethiopia. Reports indicate that a number of these workers are anxious to return home. In fact, 1,500 Kenyans have registered to be evacuated by their government. I spoke to one of these domestic workers who works on the outskirts of Beirut. This Israeli footage shows what they claim is a hit on a Hezbollah arms depot in eastern Lebanon on Monday. As the missiles continue to fly back and forth on the ground, people are worried.
It was so shocking. I was shocked. When the sound barrier breaks, there was a smoke in Beirut, so I thought it was a bomb blast or something like that. But when they come home, they told me, oh no, this was not a bomb blast, this was some sound barrier.
Yulita moved to Lebanon just over a year ago and lives on the outskirts of the capital, Beirut. She's among the 26,000 Kenyans living there. She feels stranded as she can't afford the ticket to leave Lebanon.
We are here because of our problems. Yes, we came here to work, but we were not prepared that if something like this happens, we have this amount of money for emergencies like this. No, we don't have this money. And the tickets also prices increased. It's not like before. The tickets increased because many foreign nationalities were moving out of the country.
Flights to Kenya cost up to an estimated $1,000, with the average monthly salary of a migrant worker set at about $150. Yulita has her passport, but for many migrant workers, their travel documents are taken away under the country's labor sponsorship system known as kafala. It forces foreign workers to seek their employer's permission to change jobs or to leave the country. Western nations like the UK, the US and France are asking their citizens to leave the region, with tensions worsening. Yulita's family back home are very worried about her safety.
We haven't been able to sleep much because we are not sure what the situation is in Lebanon. We appeal to the government to help Yulita come home and get a job here so that she doesn't have to go back overseas for work.
This isn't the first time migrant workers have been stranded in Lebanon. The COVID-19 pandemic and the economic crash of 2020 left many trapped. Ethiopia and Kenya make up the largest percentage of the almost 250,000 migrant workers in Lebanon. Both governments say they are putting plans in place to help their citizens.
The world over, within the ION system, the keeping of employees or migrant workers' passport is forbidden. Within our laws, we have emergency travel documents, but our embassies across the world are able to facilitate our nationals who are stuck abroad because of loss of travel documents.
The International Organization for Migration told the BBC that if a conflict occurs in the country that you are living in, then international humanitarian law would apply and people must be allowed to leave.
We don't have that money. Even if you want to go, there's no way to go. So we just depending on the government. If the government will come on our rescue, it will be better because many of us, we are not in a position to sponsor ourselves.
As the risk of a regional war looms, domestic workers like Yulita hope that they will be able to flee to safety if and when they need to. Wahiga Mwaura, BBC News. Well, earlier on, I spoke to Gina Al-Andari, who is the Outreach and Mobilization Officer for the NGO CAFA. CAFA provides support for migrant domestic workers in Lebanon. I began by asking her to describe the general condition of these workers in Lebanon in the face of the tensions.
Overall, in Lebanon, domestic workers or migrant domestic workers coming from Africa and other countries live under restrictive conditions due to the system that exists in Lebanon and that governs the presence of migrant domestic workers. And it is what we refer to as the kafala system or the sponsorship system. And this system is restrictive. So in times of aggressions, especially within the affected areas, we can predict that the situations might worsen for domestic workers. So they might not have the same mobility as Lebanese nationals, maybe to move around. They will not have the same access to information to understand what's going on or to take informed measures accordingly. Some do not have their documents to be able to travel back before things escalate. So it adds to their vulnerability. It adds to the complexity of the situation.
Well, one of the complaints we got from some of the migrant workers we spoke to was the prohibitive cost of tickets should they be accorded the opportunity to leave by their employer and, of course, with their passport as well. Have you gotten complaints about how expensive it is to leave? And does this reflect on, what they earn on a monthly basis?
So we have witnessed this before the current events back in 2020 with COVID. The domestic workers who wanted to travel back and did not have the support for free voluntary return struggled in getting their tickets. And we know that many airlines make the situation worse by increasing these fares, especially in times of crisis. So talking about the current crisis, of course, if these domestic workers do not get formal support from the diplomatic missions here to get back to their countries, there is going to be a problem. But the ticket issue is not a problem on its own. What becomes a problem in the current context is when the employers do not pay, or when the employers deny her the right to end her contract or to travel back, or they try to blackmail her into paying the recruitment fees, which they paid. This is where the problem lies. So yes, if this was to break onto a larger scale, where domestic workers would face this issue and this challenge with the increased airplane ticket. And just to mention on an additional note, within the current context, if it is the employer's responsibility to provide the airplane ticket or the ticket once the domestic worker has finished her contract, or once the employer is responsible for the termination of the contract. However, because of the absence of a law and absence of protection, many violations happen. And the employers try to evade these responsibilities.